I, like you, was born void of any memories of any past lives. This was a direct change-up in our DNA done by the Life Star in order to save us from the sins of our fathers. When our DNA was resequenced for this particular planet at this particular size and this particular time, they went ahead and changed other factors within our DNA. And that's well established within the medical community. You can look it up on your particular planet and see which DNA attributes have been deactivated from the human species. And it's interesting how each one tries to explain it in their own way. However, just because we were not born with memories of past lives and other time periods and parallel universes, it doesn't mean we cannot access those memories from the divine, from the memory banks that are well established for all to use. Open source knowledge for anyone that can access it and knows how to access it within their own brain. And this is where the difference is between Gnosticism and the set religions that rely on text and other materialistic things to reach the spiritualness that they're looking for, and that I'm not saying it's not possible to find it that way, but in reality, it always ends up being their direct connection within their own conscious to the divine. And even if they gained the inspiration from a prior book, which we went over earlier, it doesn't matter how they got there. The fact is that they're here now. Pure conscious thought, self-realizing, becoming sentient of self, and then asking, why am I here? Where did I come from? What is the purpose? These are questions that have pondered mankind forever. And at the end of the day, there still are no firm answers other than the truth that I can testify to and maybe supplement some gaps in the storyline. But I still believe at the end of the day that it is somewhat incomplete, and I am not the end of the storytelling. There is still more to come. But that is a story for another time and place, and right now I'd like to begin the story of my return to the flesh incarnate and how I have experienced life through many manifestations of this format before self-realizing who and what I truly was. And I believe all of us go through this transitional phase of self-awakening, not knowing fully what we are to be, but knowing fully well that we are, yet not knowing from whence and why, but yet we know there's a purpose somewhere, and that yearns at our inner soul to believe fully that there is. So our worlds are full of all kinds of people, of all kinds of walks of life, experiencing all kinds of different things, and all of this is the eternal us. The blessing that we get to experience all of these things, while yet simultaneously still experiencing our individuality that makes us us, and thus our own soul, which is part of the bigger God. Think of it like this. God is a pitcher of water, all the waters of life, and at any given time, it pours its waters out to fill up societies with people, each one its own little cup, and each society a different color of water. So each planet has all these different societies and different civilizations and different time epochs, and all of these different peoples living, and they're all these different colors and everything. And then one day God says, I need to call all my people back. I need to be me again. And therefore he sucks up all those waters of life back up into himself itself. And God is God. God will always be God. So those inherent memories will always be there, and they're always locked in the eternal self of consciousness. And that eternal consciousness can be accessed. However, one must know how to ask themselves the right questions. Therefore, set religions do pose certain questions that require certain prescriptions, therefore making a sound foundation in a religion that can help guide a society to a better way of life, better spiritual life, better relationships, so on and so on. But at the end of the day, one must search to reach further if they truly want to speak to the divine and have a direct connection with the divine. And with that being said, I must point out that before we get into talking about my return from what you consider to be the Christ, the one and only, that you have to understand that before I was the Christ, I also lived many lives prior to that, if we want to extend it that far. In other words, it was never a start at that point. That was just the point where it manifested itself into the culmination of what it became. And with that, we transgress to where we're at now, and this is where I am at now. For all of mankind, over the transcendence of time, our communal conscience grows, and our personal conscience grows with that. So perhaps the viewpoint from peoples in the future, when they look back at terms that now mean something entirely different than what they used to, we could take the word slavery, for instance. In today's world, where everyone has a strong grasp of their consciousness because it is a full cup of all the transcendent history that we now have behind us, that is not the same as the initial peoples placed here from the life star that were blank slates. They needed the guidance, they needed the ruling, they needed to be told how to work together as a team so that we could set in motion the things we needed to set in motion. Therefore, the term slavery in that respect was not evil and was not bad. Now, over time, and after the initial need was completed, there have been those that have perverted that nature and used slavery for their own good. And this is with anything in life that is created for good, it can be used for bad, especially the life star itself. It can also be a death star. So how one perceives something, and this is why it's so essential that we breed and teach morality into humanity, because at the end of the day, we do have the tools to either propagate mankind to the end of time or to destroy mankind today. And the only thing that sets that apart and differentiates it is the morality of the people running society at any given time. Now, as the divine eternal spirit, I try to touch every soul that I can. Some souls are more willing to accept that touch, whereas others repel that touch. And it is thus that free will that either allows me to give the gifts to certain people, whereas others refuse those gifts. And that is why it may seem that some people have different things or are able to glide through life mysteriously without effort, whereas others have difficulty. And again, this comes back to your own free will and your willingness to accept the call that is being trying to communicate with you directly. And like I said, some people already have blockers on and repel that call as if it's two opposing magnets, whereas other individual souls have the type of magnet that will lock it together and join and coalesce. Now the problem with that is not everyone is pure in spirit, and evil and morality that's why that is a constant theme with religions, the morality aspect, because he who has no morals cannot access these gifts. Those with the highest morals may access all of the gifts if they know how to ask the correct questions. And these questions change over time and are not a deadlocked series of instances within certain contextual books. It is an ongoing process throughout all of time, because God is eternal and things change over time, and we are an eternal experience of a journey that belongs to all of us souls, all of us. And we determine that ultimately that outcome. And so for this reason, it's important for the divine to either be able to communicate personally with those souls or not. But again, that is the free will of the soul determining whether it wants to communicate back with the divine. So essentially what that means is, based on people's own personal beliefs and their interpretation of reality and the beyond, will determine what they accept into their world and what they reject into their world. And that's perfect. And it is all of these imperfections that make us perfect as a human species and as a spirit and as a divine entity, that the three of us, right, the triad, work towards the eternal existence of self, which is the history of all past and the history of all future and the eternal living in the forever now. So based on this acceptance of the divine spirit and the morality of the individual soul trapped in the human form, the human prison of the soul, based on all of that, that will determine how much of the divine is transferred into that individual. And of course, that is always up to the individual itself with its own free will. Now, that is why it's been so difficult for my reincarnation. As I have attempted to come back many times to continue what we had started, however, due to things like abortions and immorality, I have not been able to find a soul body that I can connect to as a divine spirit to allow that soul body to accept the Lord Savior, Christ, and to transmute all of the energies needed to pass along the knowledge that has been forgotten over time and that the peoples of ourselves need, ourselves of all time. And not only things that we have forgot, but things that have been misconstrued or abused or just outright lied about. This is why the importance of what this is as a whole, I think, really matters. No matter what you believe from the interpreter and the tool that I chose to deliver the message, at the end of the day, the message still is the message, and it still rings as true today as it will tomorrow, as it did yesterday. And that is the reason for doing what we do as a species. To continue with the truth of all truths throughout all the eons and ages, because the truth is impermeable. The truth is forever. The truth is law, and anything that is not the truth will perish. Anything that is not the truth will wither and die. And you may be able to hide behind a lie for, in your world, what may seem like an eternity, but it's actually a minute aspect of the entire grand scheme of things. Therefore, you might get away with something for 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, 300 years, but at the end of the day, at the end of all time, the truth will always prevail, and it will always knock out that which is evil, as lies have no other objective force other than to alter the reality of the truth. Now, as a divine spirit entering all of these different souls throughout all of the eons and ages, with all of their different moral and belief system attributes, allows that divine spirit, that divine knowledge, to gather information in ways that would never be possible if everything was a monotheistic way of doing things, whether it be monotheistic or mono-thought, mono-religion, mono-create, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it is all of this experience and journeys and trials and errors that really make us who we really are. And we can never take that away from ourselves. The thing is, if people are pursuing things in the wrong light, then that is a waste of their life, of their soul, and of not just their time, but of the time of all humanity, because it not only sets them back or puts them on the wrong path, and they may gain personal attributes in the temporal, but in the long run, it will set mankind back more so than they realize. And those are the tricks of evil. This is why it has been almost impossible for my return up until now, because there was never a human soul walking the earth that would allow me to be the real me and to get this knowledge back out to the masses and to tell the story the way it needed to be told and finished through the memories of my life, the way I remember it. And at the end of the day, no matter how you interpret it and no matter what you say about it, does not take away from my memories of what I knew or what I know I lived. Most of the time, the divine spirit enters into the person as either a thought, a dream, or a vision, and that person feels an external connection as if they are being called to or talked to. And that is the first stage. People or souls to go to the next level have to go beyond that and get to a more communal level where they realize they are one with that spirit, and that spirit is within them and can guide them in ways that they never knew possible. But that is only possible through true morality, true virtue, and true lack of ego or narcissistic tendencies. Most individual spirits, human people, when they receive strong connections from the divine, they get arrogant, egotistical, and big-headed and end up falling quickly to the dark side. And this is really how we can separate evil from good. And it also shows how tempting it is to take the quick way to achieve the instant successes and gratifications of the material world. And for some, this is what they strive for, and this is what they pursue, and this is what their real intent is for. And those individuals really make it difficult for those of us that understand that there is a bigger picture, a longer lasting purpose of why we need to do the things that we do now, as if we're planting the seeds now for something that's going to be great in the future. And again, at the same time, realizing that we are living off the seeds of what someone planted before this, right? So if we plant seeds of deceit and immorality and hate, then that's what's going to propagate and grow and be fruitful in the future. And likewise, if we were born out of those seeds, then you or I were born into a world full of hate and deceit and those kind of things. So it is up to us to turn that around, put morality back in place, put love back in place, put peace back in place, and not fake, but real. And we will see that when we plant those seeds, and we plant that morality, that the offspring will create better offspring, and our children's children and our children's children's children will ultimately find the end pursuit journey that we have long been striving for, which is the pursuit of happiness and fulfillment, strong families, strong bonds, a love, no emptiness inside, just to feel whole, not just as a human being and a person, but to feel whole as a soul. And for all of us to truly know why we're here, what our purpose is, and what we truly, really are doing for ourselves, for mankind. The powers that be from the past, after the Great Deluge and the Great Floods, those that knew the reality of what was going on, kept those secrets from the masses so that they could use it for their own personal control. And this is exactly what is evil, right? They were looking out for themselves and not for the rest of humanity and mankind, the single species that is all of us. So my true awakening within the different souls and beings of the entire population of the peoples throughout all of time, past, present, and future, comes down to whether it be a thought or a connection that could be a millisecond, and that connection could just be that strong that it was able to change that individual soul, or it could be those that have searched and learned to adapt to these wavelengths, to accept and bond with it, and therefore they're talking on a more and more long basis and have a stronger connection with that bond. And those individuals may experience either a month's worth over the course of their life, whether they pray 5 minutes a night, every other night, or whether they think in their head, or why is it that even atheists, when something goes wrong, they go, oh God? It's amazing to me how many people subconsciously really still do talk to that ultimate divine power, yet they don't know how to connect to it. So that is why my reincarnation, my return to earth has been so difficult, and me experiencing all of the different lives by trying to connect with all of the different individuals and all of the different souls has been very powerful to see through the lens of everyone else's viewpoint and why they either do or don't accept the things that either could be or should be or will be, and yet turn to the easier bribe of the current times. Current tangible manifestations and the current temporal popularism of the day, as opposed to the long-term morality and soul connecting to the divine that is truly warranted to really follow the path that one is seeking and not finding. Now, as I awakened within each and every one of you, and rejected within each and every one of you at some degree and some point because of either your lack of true belief as to what was communicating with you, or your lack of understanding, or your lack of morality, there came one soul walking the planet whom set aside the temporal gains, the instant gains, set aside the establishment religions, and truly went soul searching for the truth of the divine. And it was that poor lost soul that got rejected by all of society, but would not waver in his belief and would not waver in his search. And it was the search more so than the belief, but the two went hand in hand to not just find that connection with the divine because he knew he had it from the beginning, but to pursue that connection with the divine so that he could tap into those resources and get the answers needed that everyone was searching for. And it's that connection that allowed me to enter that spirit, that soul, commune with it, and have an awakening. And that is when I was able to find myself incarnated back on planet Earth. And hence my return, and after seeing the way things were left and really truly realizing my true purpose as to what I was supposed to do now that I found myself again, that is why, beyond obviously the full knowledge that this would turn this individual into a laughing stock of his time, we had to do it. The Divine Spirit working through the person as the awakening incarnate, as the return of Christ. It was the only soul that allowed this transmutation to happen. And I have to admit myself, when I fully self-realized at my awakening and finding myself, my true self, and walking upon this planet in this day and age and seeing what has transpired and happened since we left, I was amazed and dismayed all at the same time at all of the wonders, yet all of the confusion, hate, and sorrow that still persist on this planet. It's unfathomable that 2,000 years has passed and mankind as a whole is still lost, is still traveling without the rudder to guide it. And not only that, but the true essence of what the moon truly is, where it came from, and how all of this came to pass has been completely lost. Humanity is now a species with amnesia, and that leaves a dark hole in the souls of everybody. And we need to fill that dark hole with light and guidance and bring them out of the darkness. And that is one of the other reasons why I had to finish this book that was intended always from the get-go upon my reincarnation. The reason I have not spoke up sooner to now during this life existence journey is for obvious reasons. I found it very odd and weird upon my return that to honor my death, people were wearing crosses. And I know to those listening that just sounds completely natural, like why would that be a thing? And if you begin to think about it and wonder, the person now, because of this deliverance of truth, will be persecuted. And maybe one day he will be shot from those that don't truly believe, shot with a gun. And then maybe later people might realize that this text is important and does have some merit and should be introduced into canon. At that point, what are they going to do? Are they going to start wearing necklaces with guns around them to honor the death of that prophet and messenger? I mean, that sounds weird, right? We have a lot of school shootings here in the last whatever around this area of this world and this time and place, and I find that, very horrible. But imagine if you were to honor those school shootings by wearing a gun around your neck because you want to honor those that were killed in the shooting. Do you think those that were murdered and sacrificed their soul and their time on this planet, do you think they would respect that? So for me, it's kind of freaky that upon my awakening, there's so many people wearing the instrument and tool that was used to kill me.